Morty, you gotta come to the garage. You gotta try it. The payoff's huge. I lost my job, Morty. I'm unemployed, Rick. You gotta be willing to have a little cringe in your life. You gotta be willing to do something kind of cringy like that and put it out there. So I lost my job about a week ago today. It's Wednesday, a little after lunch. They just let me go. It's fine. It's not about them. It's about me. What's going on now? I have no job. There's a sort of freedom to it where I could be doing anything. So I got the camera out, I got my microphone, and this little warm-up one is going to be practice for making more videos. So what I'm thinking about right now is how poetic it almost seems that I am here with my good old microphone and my camera while my parents are away in Hawaii and I'm house sitting. You may recall, if you're a true Marcus Edwards OG, that when I started this channel, it was the new year with January 2022, where I committed to making a video every single week, and I made that commitment while I was at home, while my parents were in Hawaii. That time I wasn't allowed to go because of reasons. I made a whole video about that. I don't really want to rehash it here, but now, once again, while enjoying this lovely home to myself, I find myself having another life update. Now, the future has never been brighter. Getting a new job is the right thing for me, and I think the question is, how far could I push this freedom? And you might be thinking, oh, well, it's already been a week. You might have expected an upload before then. But I'd like to say that there's been a little bit of cleanup, a little bit of taking it easy that a guy earns. Friday, after I lost my job, I hosted what was likely the best party this house has seen in a long time. I have a vision of the highest possible aim. I imagine we can only be what we see, or rather, the truly great people become something that hasn't been seen before. But I see YouTube channels where someone will say, I lost my job and made a game, and those are awesome videos. I love to consume that. So if I know that I like to consume it because other people are doing it, and I know that I like it, which sort of gives me the ability to say what makes it good, that I might be able to do something similar to that. It could be anything, and that's the thing I keep forgetting. This YouTube channel is not supposed to be something that makes me money in lieu of having a job. It's supposed to be a place for me to talk about what I want to talk about, and a place where I can give myself implied deadlines to make sure stuff happens. Like the album that came out in January, I thought that one was pretty good. It can be cathartic to talk about things. I know I say it a lot, but I'm going to say it again. If you have things you want to talk about in a way that doesn't require taking the time of a friend, if that makes any sense. I will record stuff all the time. I've been journaling since I was little, and sometimes while I'm driving, I'll just turn on a microphone, and sometimes the microphone, it doesn't even turn on, the screen falls asleep and it's whatever, because I do it for long enough. But the image of saying something recorded without having to worry about, the very real meet human with you, I don't want to waste people's time, but I do want to spend my own time because it's not a waste if it benefits me. A jack of all trades, a master of none. People often forget that the way that rhyme continues, better off than a master of one, I think is how it ends. And I think a weakness of mine is that I bounce from idea to really, really quickly. There might be some sort of attention deficit situation there. And same with autism. I don't want to get any diagnosis. I don't want some person in a lab coat giving me pills for something. I want to navigate my life as I can. It's possible to put your phone down. It's possible to stop eating sweets. It's hard, but that can get in the way. I feel like I haven't really specialized in anything on this channel, with the loose claim being that if any particular video really took off, that would be the thing I would do. And to this day, I'm sure my most popular video is still the how-to with that music stuff I was making, and still am making. And maybe that's what it should be. Maybe I should make music and talk about it. But what I really like doing is just talking. He'll learn a skill. He's learning rock climbing. He's got that Scottish accent. It's not Mark Rober. Who is Mike Boyd? Mike Boyd does that, and I like that. I think that's really cool. And maybe I could be learning skills. Just in the past few weeks with friends, I've tried skiing. That was hard. I don't know if I like it to buy my own. And then there was also ice skating, which was very similar in the sense that it was difficult, But I found that I wouldn't be making content if I didn't make this channel. And I was making a video almost every week for a year, honestly. That was really cool. And then I wouldn't be making these albums without a deadline. And the deadline's kind of enforced by the YouTube channel. My mom asked me when I was working on it, me and my artist were getting a little stressed out by the project. And she was like, if you're stressed out, what's the point of doing it? Why are you even doing this if you're getting stressed out? And I was like, well, you got to understand, if there's no deadline, it won't get done. The question is, how strict is the deadline? And that's why we moved it up by a week. I'd rather talk about the ideas of like what I could potentially do that hasn't necessarily been done before. But the problem there, again, is that maybe I wouldn't stick with it. But here's one idea, and that is taking YouTube creators that I already really like personally and like doing one-offs where, okay, here's a video in the style of blank, and like I prove my ability to analyze the style that someone brings to the table and then copy it. And I feel like that could almost be like a meta skill. Like maybe the premise of my channel could be like, hey, YouTuber I like, make a video like them and make a thing like them, you know, like there's like smaller game creators. I'm obviously not going to be like, oh, let me make a huge game compared to like Breath of the Wild or something huge like that. As much as I'd like to, that's not a task for one person. That's not a one-person thing. That's what teams are for. Not to mention, I am on that game team still. You know, progress has slowed down, but I'm still the only programmer, and I have made progress on that, which I would like to talk about. I don't think talking about such things blocks any sort of privacy. You know, it's not like we've got like the next big thing hidden beyond this game, but it could be a fun thing, if not the next big thing. So I think it'd be fun to copy people's styles. I also think just like doing a regular, if not, you know, daily's a bit much, but weekly, like programming little project, because that's probably the one with the most leverage. You know, I opened with losing my job, and I assure you the biggest loss by far was just the ability to go to the office and see the friends I've made there. Also, go to the office. That's the second ping for the birth and death of Marcus Edwards here, because I don't even know who I'm speaking as anymore. There's Joseph, who I am, there's Marcus, who is the channel, and then there's Jimmy Johan, who makes the music, which is like the most regular creative work of one type, I would say. You know, programmers, they like to see a little project. They like to see that you're programming in your free time. They like to see that you're up to date with stuff. And I've always disagreed with that, because it's like, for any job, it's like, you wouldn't really expect someone to do that job outside of things. Like, let's say you were a plumber, right? And you were applying for a plumber position. You're like, oh yeah, actually, after my 9 to 5, I keep working with pipes. I don't see why that's required. And yet with programming, they're like, no. I know you're gonna have a 9 to 5 looking at a screen all day. I'm going to need proof that you're looking at a screen for the rest of the day. And that's like explicitly productive time, which I personally find difficult after I've been at a job, which is still a cope, because like when I was working from home, it's like, okay, well, you know, maybe the work isn't as heavy. These things are complicated. But the point is, the YouTube channel can be a vessel for, instead of trying new things or producing creative works, just pursuing my own skills. I've got a whole bunch of things that I can't even call half-baked. They're less than 1/10 baked, but they have been started. I was into VR for a while. Doing some VR projects has got to be cool, and the type of thing that contributes to getting a programming job, which, to be clear, I'm not even sure that's exactly what I want. It's what I'm trained in for school, and it's what I have been doing for a career, but I would be really open-minded to a job that doesn't require looking at screens. Now, at the same time, I'm less concerned about my job being super fun and more concerned about building a nest egg to eventually be able to start a family. And honestly, on the salary I had at my company, I was not on track to be able to buy my own house, you know, and raise a kid in it. So hopefully a new job means a raise. Again, nothing against my company. There were a lot of complicated things at play. Dream, the high aim that I think I will fall short of, is like regular videos of the variety that represent entertaining, creative progress that's also in the Venn diagram of like things related to my position. You know, I like some people's video, I see, I think her name's Zyga, you know, that R thing where they have like a British accent and they don't fully pronounce it. She did one where it's like, oh, I'm gonna make a graphics engine in 1 week, which is just so crazy to me. Like that, like I don't really want to be the engines guy. You know, I don't write programming languages. I write in programming languages. And if you're not a programmer, here's what I mean by that. If you're a writer, you use the English language to write things. But if you, like, no one's out here creating languages these days. No one creates a new vocabulary, a new grammar. Obviously, little things like that happen along the way. That's what we call slang. But like when a programmer's like, oh, I'm gonna code up my own integrated development environment, or I'm gonna code up my own game engine. I'm sure that's possible, but like for me, I don't think that's really what I want to do. I feel like what I want to do can be done within Unity, Unreal, just dumb old JavaScript in a browser. It also benefits to be specific, because if I say something specific here, then you'll see it, and then I'll feel obligated to follow up on it, which hasn't been the most successful on the channel, but I do still think about those things. Like, oh, I said I would do this, I'm still going to do it. When I was still applying to jobs before I got the job that I just lost, so that would be 3.5 years ago, that's how long I was there, before the YouTube channel, there was a game company, and there was some sort of thing where it was like there's a whole bunch of asteroids with miscellaneous velocities moving around in 3 dimensions. We'll give you all the data. You have to write the code to process like whether or not your ship's going to get hit by those asteroids, which is a really good programming question and a really good game design question, or game programming question rather, because it's not implicitly a game. You're not driving the ship to avoid the planets, asteroids, whatever. And the guy said I had infinite time, like take as long as you want with it. And after a while, I was like, I would rather give someone something than drag this along for too long. So I submitted it saying, oh, I think a quad tree would work faster. We were looking for processing speed. And he was like, oh, what we actually wanted was a quad tree. And what's funny about that is that when you're doing it on your own, you could just consume infinite resources. You know, it's like an open book test or like a take-home test. You could just Google stuff back in school. But this is more like you have to prove that you can apply it to the code they gave you, so you can't just Google their code. But you could Google what a quad tree is, and it's like I could find a YouTube video on quad tree in 5 minutes. It can't even be that hard. But it's like there's Googling it and then adapting it for their code, which might have been enough. But then there's like Googling it and fully understanding it, at which point I would consider, well, maybe sharing it with you. Maybe I could be like, oh, let me show you how well I know quad trees. I can explain it like you're a 5-year-old potentially. And that's the type of content I kind of want to make, but something that holds me back from like sharing educational content. And I hope people find it entertaining when I spiral like this, because like if me just talking was the content, I could be doing this. I could be making a YouTube video every day, because I'm always thinking about things, I'm always listening to things. But the big reason I don't just repeat is the thing, what I've heard, even if I act as a repeater to a new audience, you know, like let's say I listen to 10 episodes of Joe Rogan and pick one topic that I think is really cool and then make a 15-minute version of it for you, that still counts. But it's also like if you really wanted to hear about it, you could reach out to Joe Rogan. So it's like, oh, maybe I pique your interest, but even then I'm just kind of forwarding you to him, which wouldn't even be a problem. But when it comes to, you know, specifically like esoteric health stuff and game design stuff, I didn't establish that organically. I found it somewhere, and I would be repeating the information to you. Now, along the way, you can optimize things, right? Like you could do someone does the Einstein math, and they write a paper on it, and then I could read the paper, really understand it, and then digest it down for like a 5-year-old version. I mean, that's what I'm sure people do with like college-level concepts. You know, you might get some crusty professor who's not the most fun to deal with. There's places like Khan Academy, right? You get someone who's really good at talking. See, that's the thing. Like the leverage. I mean, here's a topic, right? The trade-offs in being a teacher between like knowledge and the ability to transmit knowledge. I don't even think I'm that smart of a guy. I don't have the best memory. I'm always consulting resources all the time. It doesn't really stick. But once it's in the cache, once it's in the RAM, computer terms, I do a pretty good job, I think, of like simplifying it for other people. Which is, I mean, that's part of why my dad always thought I'd make a good teacher. He was, you know, very, very lowercase g grooming me to be a better speaker growing up. There's a lot of little vocal tics that hopefully you're not even aware of, that I'm still aware of, that he really flattened out of me when I was little, when most little kids still have those tics. Whenever I see an adult, I'm like, I respect you, and you're good at your job, but that, you know, it's like nails on a chalkboard, and you hear it. Point is, maybe such synthesis content where I learn something and then get it out there is actually worth something, especially because I'm a super small channel. It's more about making sure I don't go too long without doing something. And when I had my job, you know, my job wasn't really creative. You know, some people dare to say that software engineering isn't even engineering because you're not, you know, I mean, what makes a mechanical engineer an engineer? Obviously, mechanical engineers are engineers. But my degree's in software engineering, and I always thought engineering was solving problems, problem solving. Now, obviously, it gets more complicated than that. But in the job I used to have, I never really felt creative. Even when I was writing code, it didn't feel creative, which is why twice a year I try to put out some music, just so that the creative juices don't get fully seized up. I mean, having a 2-year flush of your system really counts towards something. So now I kind of have like a triple-edged sword here where I have a lot more time. I mean, one more thing, for those of you looking for jobs out there, remember to do things you like, remember to do things that are creative, and this is for like the parents of maybe recent college grads. You can't be applying to jobs all day, you know? So get a good process. I mean, I could lay out the process I got to get my job during the pandemic, which is a whole thing. I journaled that too. I had a job hunt journal, and I can tell you day by day by day what I did for my cover letter, what I did for my resume, who I applied to, who called back, all of that stuff. I got this big dumb whoop strap. I was gonna make a video about this, and then I lost my job and things kind of went a little off track. But like, literally, this thing didn't fix my sleep, but it told me that my sleep wasn't the problem, which is crazy to think that that would be the case, because I trusted it. It said, hey man, you got good sleep, and I'm like, why do I still have brain fog? And it's like, it's not because you're sleeping poorly. And then I realized, it's got its own stress feature, and it's like, oh, well, you were so stressed out. The main thing is I have this 3-pronged opportunity that I just want to make something out of, and that's why I'm making this video here. I want to take this immense amount of free time, and I feel this drive to create. I count making content to be a little like making music, but I feel like making content, at least just talking like this, it feels too easy to just talk. There has to be something else about it. The kombucha video was a real treat. That was a lot of editing. That was a lot of like I had to write a script for that, not to mention just actually doing the kombucha stuff, which I intend to pick up again when I live in a new apartment. But believe it or not having a job is a terrible time to be looking for an apartment, so that's still on the back burner. Finding a job needs to happen first. It's a whole thing. So, time, creativity, but also productivity, which is like actually making something tangible. And for that, I mean like something you could put in a programming portfolio. That mean, like I had a website, I paid for some domain name, and they still charge me once a year, but the site doesn't work. I don't know why that is. I mean, fixing my website and talking about what goes into that would be a really educational video. I'm sure plenty of people want a website. It's like I'm not using Wix or Squarespace. Like that could be at the very least just like a link to the other stuff I've worked on, links to my music, links to my games. I mean, I never even talk about my games on this channel. I'd love to do like a long form just review of every video game I've worked on, because I would dare say by numbers, at least among my fellow graduates, I probably had more than most, and that's mostly because every academic year had like a game for a class, and every academic year had at least one game jam game. And if you're unfamiliar, a game jam is where there's a limited time period, usually just 48 hours. It's the weekend, so Friday after classes, you get together, and you're at the student memorial building, whatever, and you can sneak down to the little thing that's like a gas station and get an energy drink. I don't condone staying up late. I operate very poorly if I don't get enough sleep. Evidence why I bought this when I felt like I was performing poorly. But for those that like it, that's part of it. And mostly it's just the deadline. So usually we get there, we have an idea, and then in 48 hours you make a game. And then, if you have a good team, you have a good idea, you can throw in a few extra hours between classes, and then you get to show it off at the expo at the end of the semester. Again, I'm talking about things very specific to UW Stout. It's like what I do in the car. I turn the microphone on and I talk and I talk and I talk, and it's cathartic. Like I was feeling kind of down today, just randomly. It was a good day. It was fine. And I slept well, but I was like feeling kind of down, and then I talk like this, and it's cathartic. I feel more like myself, and that's if you're still watching this and you were thinking, oh man, I sure hope Marcus Edwards has a lesson for me, I always include one. I don't think people much care, but I'm still going to do it this time. You should find something you do that likely doesn't involve consuming anything that makes you happy in like a cathartic way, that makes you feel more like you. I get that way a little bit with cooking, which is more important than just eating, because restaurants have tastier food. I'm not an expert chef, but sometimes the food I make makes me very happy, and it's almost important that there be some amount of effort to it. Like when I make eggs and toast, I don't really feel that special about it, but when I make steak and vegetables on the side, or some sort of fried rice mixture, or anything that takes a little bit more than the base level effort, I feel good doing it. When I set up the dang camera and get the mic, I feel good doing it, and that's a good time. And you should find something that you like doing. And if you're like me, where you enjoy talking about things and people watching it gives you pressure to do it, I would recommend throwing a YouTube video together. A YouTube channel, rather. Like on your phone. Hi there, I'm so-and-so, and I like doing this thing. And then you pause, you stop, and then you flip to the other side, and you're like, here I am. I like Magic the Gathering, and this is the deck I play, for example. That's just something I know people do. My mom knits. I could grab something that she's knit around here, but she's in Hawaii. I'm sure that's a lot of fun. Thank you for coming along for the ride. Marcus Edwards is not dead. I suppose he is dead. But this channel isn't. I also need to come up with a better name, because there's some lovely athlete whose name comes up instead. I feel like Mojo Dojo would be awesome, but that has to already be in use. I'll find something, but maybe you won't be searching Marcus Edwards to find this anymore. Thank you again for being along for the ride. If anything I said in this video sparked your curiosity, please send a message. If there's anything you'd like to see me try, if there's anything that you think like, oh man, can you show me how to do a quad tree in Unity? If there's anyone watching this who actually wants to see it done, I will personally make that video just for your education. Thank you very much.